As we all know, our forefathers, the hunter-gatherers, had no money. Then communities and societies developed the barter trade, exchanging goods for goods. Then came money. Money is not coins and banknotes. It is anything that people are willing to use in order to represent systematically the value of other things for the purpose of exchanging goods and services. And so, in prisons, or for example in camps for prisoners of war, cigarettes have often served as money. Prisoners exchange cigarettes as money. Money is accordingly a system of mutual trust, and money is the most universal and the most efficient system of mutual trust ever devised by humans. It is based on two universal principles. The first principle is universal convertibility. With money, you can turn land into loyalty and hatred into love. But the second principle is universal trust. With money, as a go-between, any two people or any two companies can cooperate on any project. Now, we all know Africa needs capital, investments, advanced skills and technologies to realize our full developmental potential. So the 2022 Nyerere lecture will explore issues of finance and Africa development in a futuristic context. The afternoon sessions will pay attention to the role of banks as trade as engines of growth. Later on, issues of African connectivity and coping with science and technology will all be addressed. The second cluster of panels will deal with the usual suspect: African liberation, the quest for unity and Pan-Africanism, as well as prospects and challenges of the African Leviathan, the African state. Finally, issues of education and African identity will be discussed, paying close attention to the role of art, culture, and language. Finally, it was decided that, in recognition of the sacrifices made by millions of Africans and others to further the goals of liberation and well-being, we should honor an African woman and an African man as for their sacrifice, commitment, and dedication to the struggle. And so, after a comprehensive search, and on the basis of set criteria, two individuals were chosen. These are none other than Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela of South Africa, and President Joachim Chissano of Mozambique. The awards Friday afternoon. Now, let me take this opportunity to thank the University of Dar es Salaam leadership, led by the Vice Chancellor, Professor Nangisi, for their valuable support. I also want to thank our co-organizers of this event, Haki Elimu, led by their Executive Director, Dr. John Kalage. But we are very grateful to our sponsors, the Bank of Tanzania, Haki Elimu, the National Bank of Commerce. I think they are here, they are represented. Can they please stand up? NBC? Okay. Thank you very much. CRDB. Thank you very much. NMB. And Haki Elimu. Oh, the we all know, yes, please. As we all know, our forefathers, the hunter-gatherers, had no money. Stopped the barter trade, exchanging goods for goods. Then came money. Money is not coins and banknotes. It is anything that people are willing to use in order to represent systematically the value of other things for the purpose of exchanging goods and services. And so, in prisons, or for example in camps for prisoners of war, cigarettes have often served as money. You know, prisoners exchange cigarettes as money. Money is accordingly a system of mutual trust, and money is the most universal and the most efficient system of mutual trust ever devised by humans. It is based on two universal principles. The first principle is universal convertibility. With money, you can turn land into loyalty and hatred into love. The second principle is universal trust. With money, as a go-between, any two people or any two companies can cooperate on any project. Now, we all know Africa needs capital, investments, advanced skills and technologies to realize our full developmental potential. So the 2022 Nyerere lecture will explore issues of finance and Africa development in a futuristic context. The afternoon sessions will pay attention to the role of banks as trade and trade as engines of growth. Later on, issues of African connectivity and coping with science and technology will all be addressed. The second cluster of panels will deal with the usual suspect: African liberation, the quest for unity and Pan-Africanism, as well as prospects and challenges of the African Leviathan, the African state. Finally, issues of education and African identity will be discussed, paying close attention to the role of art, culture, and language. Finally, it was decided that, in recognition of the sacrifices made by millions of Africans and others to further the goals of liberation and well-being, we should honor an African woman and an African man as for their sacrifice, commitment, and dedication to the struggle. And so, after a comprehensive search, and on the basis of set criteria, two individuals were chosen. These are none other than Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela of South Africa, and President Joachim Chissano of Mozambique. The awards will be presented on Friday afternoon. Now, let me take this opportunity to thank the University of Dar es Salaam leadership, led by the Vice Chancellor, Professor Nangisi, for their valuable support. I also want to thank our co-organizers of this event, Haki Elimu, led by their Executive Director, Dr. John Kalage. We are very grateful to our sponsors, the Bank of Tanzania, Haki Elimu, the National Bank of Commerce. I think they are here, they are represented. Can they please stand up? NBC? Okay.
African country is facing the problem of deterioration of the quality of education. Tanzania education is not doing much in developing critical thinking and inquisitive mind in the learners. The education system has continued to be examination-oriented, which supports superiority for those who attain high grades and inferiority for those who attain low grades. In other words, we have not been able to put into practice Nyerere's ideas. We are all aware of the challenges of implementing competence-based education in basic, secondary, and tertiary education. It is my view that reforms in education, which is currently going on, have to consider the real condition in our countries. In furthering the agenda of education, it is important not to forget the importance of maintaining our identity as Africans. Not only it is important to learn knowledge and skills that help us to grow and remain competitive with the rest of the world, it is important also to retain the knowledge of our cultural background and various traits that makes us unique as Africans, including using our own languages. We are still at the early stages of our journey to where we want to reach in terms of many important aspects that we are here to discuss. But we can rely on sound guidance that Mwalimu has left with us. To quote, "A nation which refuses to learn from foreign culture is nothing but a nation of idiots and lunatics. But to learn from other cultures does not mean we should abandon our own." It is my hope that as we reflect on the 100 years of Mwalimu, we will also take a time to reflect on the relevance of education and some of the Mwalimu's ideas on education for self-reliance. Let us all work together to improve the quality of our education system and sector. Thank you.
Guest of honor, Chancellor of the University of Dar es Salaam, and the former President of Tanzania, Your Excellency, Dkt.Jakaya Kikwete, former Prime Minister of the United Republic of Tanzania, Mizengo Pinda, distinguished Mwalimu Nyerere Lecturer, 2022, the Governor of Bank of Tanzania, Professor Florence Roga, Mwalimu Nyerere Chair in Pan-African Studies, Professor Lekaza Mkandala, Shehe Mkuu wa Dar es Salaam, Askofu Mkuu Shaw, Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of Academic Affairs, Professor Bonaventure Rutinwa, Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, Professor David Alfred Finanga, Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, Professor Benedetta Kilian Chapwaya, Dr. Saudini Mwakaje, Chief Corporate Counsel and Secretary to the Council, University of Dar es Salaam, ambassadors and members of the diplomatic corps, Executive Director Haki Elimu, Dr. John Kalage, Chief Executive Officer Uongozi Institute, Mr. Kadali Singo, Executive Directors of CRDB Bank, NBC and NMB, Julius Kambarage Nyerere's family, professors, members of the academia and students, friends of Kigoda, members of press and media personnel, all invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I take this opportunity to welcome you to the University of Dar es Salaam, and in this auspicious event, I'm certain that each one of us here has found this event important, and your presence in big numbers will make it successful and memorable. Among us, we have the guest of honor, whom I will shortly invite to take the podium to deliver his opening speech. He is none other than our very own University Chancellor, His Excellency Dkt.Jakaya Kikwete. We thank you very much for accepting our invitation to be with us today. In the same breath, I am grateful to Professor Florence Roga, the Governor of Bank of Tanzania, for accepting to deliver the Mwalimu Nyerere Lecture for the year 2022. It is always our pleasure to have you back here with us. We know for you it is also a moment of reminiscence, having taken your current position while at the University of Dar es Salaam. Thank you very much and welcome. I'm equally grateful to the Bank of Tanzania, Haki Elimu, CRDB, NBC, and NMB for their kind sponsorship of the 13th Mwalimu Nyerere Intellectual Festival. I understand you have participants, paper presenters, discussants who have arrived from far and wide, from Dar es Salaam and farther afield from abroad. You are welcome, and please feel at home. The university and the organizers have made everything possible to make your 3-day stay here productive and memorable. Ladies and gentlemen, I must commend the Mwalimu Nyerere Chair in Pan-African Studies, Professor Wekaza Mkandala, for organizing this event in collaboration with Haki Elimu under Director Dr. John Kalage. We are aware that as we enter into the 13th Intellectual Festival, we mark a very important milestone that coincides with the 100 years of the founding father of our nation, Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. It is therefore befitting that the Mwalimu Nyerere Chair has conceptualized the theme, Africans after Mwalimu J.K. Nyerere's century, from 1922 to 2022, reflections on the present and future. This theme fits the occasion, as Mwalimu Nyerere was not simply a Tanzanian. He was a citizen of Tanganyika when the country gained independence in 1961 as its leader. Shortly thereafter, he became a Tanzanian when Tanganyika and Zanzibar united. Mwalimu Nyerere built a unified state by ensuring that the various tribes in Tanzania spoke with the one language and felt a collective sense of belongingness to the nation. He was a Pan-Africanist and qualifies among very few people to be a true global citizen. He talked on behalf of the poor, the marginalized, and the oppressed people all over the world. Ladies and gentlemen, the University of Dar es Salaam has embarked on various innovations in honoring the legacy of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. For example, in April this year, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, presided over the inaugural ceremony of the biography of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, co-authored by 3 academics of the University of Dar es Salaam, Professor Emeritus Issa Shivji, Professor Said Yahya Othman, and Dr. Wanza Kamata. The title of the biography is Development as Rebellion, a biography of Julius Nyerere. This biography is unique not only because of the intensity of the research which unveiled many of the things which were hitherto unknown to the public, but also because it is the only biography to have been written by Tanzanians. On the same occasion, 2 more books were launched. The first one is titled Misingi ya Falsafa, Itikadi na Sera za Chama cha Mapinduzi. And another one titled Mwalimu Julius K. Nyerere, Chemichemi ya Fikra za Kimapinduzi. These books were co-authored by Dr. Bashiru Ali, Member of Parliament, former CCM Secretary General, and the former lecturer in the Department of Political Science at the University of Dar es Salaam, and Political Science and Public Administration, and Dr. Salvatore Nyanto from the Department of History. Some years back, we made a decision to rename this campus Mwalimu Julius Nyerere Mlimani Campus, in recognition of his contribution to establishment of the University of Dar es Salaam and development of education in Tanzania. Many of you know that this university was established on 25th October 1961, a few months before the independence of our country. And given the strong determination of the party, TANU, this university was hosted in the buildings owned by Tanganyika African National Union at Lumumba, where the Chama cha Mapinduzi, CCM, is currently housed. Construction of this campus started shortly, and the university relocated here in 1963. Mwalimu Nyerere was the first chancellor of the University of Dar es Salaam. From its inception until his retirement from the presidency in 1985. He was passionate about the university, and owing to his intellectualism, visited the university frequently. He encouraged arguments and was willing to listen to viewpoints, even those that he did not necessarily subscribe to. This is the heart of leadership. In the same vein, the university has established various Mwalimu Nyerere chairs, notably in development, climate change, Kiswahili, and several others. In comparison to other chairs, the Mwalimu Nyerere chair in Pan-African Studies is the most active and dynamic, and therefore known by many people in Tanzania and outside Tanzania. It has established programs outside the university in secondary schools, in some regions known as Mwalimu Nyerere Ideal Clubs. Our guest of honor. There's little doubt that Mwalimu Nyerere has left us with a very rich legacy. Our country would not have been here had it not been for the deliberate efforts made by Mwalimu Nyerere and his fellow freedom fighters. We have every reason to believe that our country will go from strength to strength if we stand by many of the things that Mwalimu believed in. Some of these ideals are unity, ethics, patriotism, self-reliance, and hard work. It is my hope that discussions in the 3 days of this festival will center on some of the ideals that Mwalimu Nyerere stood for. Your Excellency, today is your day. My duty is to welcome you to speak to this audience, which I'm sure is eager to listen and learn from the wisdom you always bring with you. It is now my pleasure to welcome you to talk to the participants and then open the 13th Mwalimu Nyerere Centenary Intellectual Festival. Karibu mkuu wa chuo kikuu cha Dar es Salaam.
Misengo Kayanza Pinda, former Prime Minister, mtoto wa mkulima. Hivi katika ile mtoto wa mkulima pia anamfuga nyuki imo. Our distinguished Mwalimu Nyerere Lecturer 2022, Governor of the Bank of Tanzania, Professor Florence Luoga, Vice Chancellor, Professor Nangise, Mwalimu Nyerere Chair in Pan-African Studies, Professor Mkandala, Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, Professor Rutinwa, Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, Professor Mfinanga, Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, Professor Kilian, Executive Director of Haki Elimu, Dr. John Kalage, leaders of the clergy, professors, members of the academia, students, friends of Kigoda, members of the press, media, and media personnel, fellow invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is an honor and a pleasure for me to join you all this morning on this very auspicious occasion of celebrating the centenary of the birth of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, the founding father of the Tanganyika nation in 1961 and the United Republic of Tanzania in 1964. I sincerely thank the Vice Chancellor and the Chair, the Mwalimu Nyerere Chair in Pan-African Studies, for inviting me here. I also thank them for according me this rare opportunity to officiate at this unique and historic event. I congratulate them all and all those involved in organizing these celebrations for a job very well done. To the sponsors, I thank you for making it possible. The decision to celebrate Mwalimu Julius Nyerere's centenary this way is the right thing for this university to do. It is very deserving of him, for the truth be told, that he was the brain behind the coming into being of this esteemed and premier university in our country. As you know, we have heard it mentioned before, or may hear it during the festival. This university was established before the independence of Tanganyika. The university enrolled its first 14 students, all of them law students, on the 25th of October, 1961. At that time, it was known the University College of Dar es Salaam, associated with the University of London. The establishment of this university was a bold decision taken by the Tanganyika African National Union, at which time it was the largest and most formidable political party leading the government, leading the movement for the independence of Tanganyika. Under the wise and able leadership of its president, Mwalimu Nyerere, TANU decided to donate its new buildings, meant to be its new headquarters, to be used for establishing the first university in the country. That decision defined TANU's vision on education in general, and it underscored the importance it attaches to higher education in particular. The building is none other than the one which a few years ago used to be the head office of SOKITA, the former economic wing of Chama cha Mapinduzi, situated at the other end of Lumumba Street. I think in that street, that was the last building. There is no other building beyond that. At that time, the street used to be called New Street. The new name changed after independence in honor of Patrice Lumumba. In 1964, the university relocated to these beautiful hills overlooking the city of Dar es Salaam. Of course, this explains why the name Mwalimu Nyerere Mlimani campus of the University of Dar es Salaam. I would like to confess that from time to time, or time and time again, I've been wondering if it would not be a good idea to think of making this university be called Julius Nyerere University of Dar es Salaam. But it's just an idea. It could be one of the best ways of recognizing his contribution in the conception of the idea of having this university, and the pivotal role he played in turning a dream into reality. In the 24 years he was in office, first as Prime Minister of Tanganyika, then President of Tanganyika, and later President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Mwalimu Nyerere was Chancellor of this great university. He built this university from humble beginnings of being associated with the University of London, later in 1963 becoming a constituent college of the University of East Africa, and in 1970 becoming a national university, an independent University of Dar es Salaam. By the time he retired in 1985, the university had grown from one faculty of law to several faculties and several institutes. For us today, therefore, we are not only honoring Mwalimu Nyerere as the first president and founder of our dear country, but also as the founder and first chancellor of this great university. In his capacity as the first chancellor, Mwalimu Nyerere gave this university a meaning and a purpose that remains in our motto to this day: hekima na uhuru. This mantra distinguishes this university from several others, and being not simply an academic institution, but also a gateway to freedom. Because of the philosophical foundation laid by its founder and its first chancellor, The University of Dar es Salaam became an intersection of academic excellence, a hotbed of progressive political and ideological discourse, and a place where Pan-Africanists and internationalists found it a better place to be. Top academicians enjoyed living and working here in the Hill. The environment was permissive, friendly, and academic freedom abound. Many, Walter Rodney, Clive Thomas, John Saul, Thomas Zentes, you can name any of these big names have been here. When Walter Rodney was somehow ostracized from his country, he went to Jamaica. Then he came to Dar es Salaam, and Dar es Salaam became his home. So he had so many of those people who really found Dar es Salaam University was the place, and they felt at home. They felt free. Also, there were many prominent scholars from the world over who became regular visitors, engaging in vibrant debate. Prof. Salim Mazrui, Samir Amin, and many others. Every now and then there used to be public lectures by these prominent scholars visiting this great university. Also, there were many prominent, also because of the anti-imperialist, anti-colonial, and anti-apartheid stance, as well as open support to the liberation struggle in Africa, the University of Dar es Salaam used to receive many visitors from the liberation movements. I can recall during our time here as students, which was at the peak of the liberation struggle in Southern Africa, many revolutionary leaders and cadres visited this University of Dar es Salaam for public lectures to enlighten the university community on the situation in the front lines. When I was vice president of the Dar es Salaam University Students Organization, because at that time we had to do so, because we had 3 campuses, Mlimani, Muhimbili, and I was in charge here. And then we meet at the federal level. So each campus had its own government. I was in charge of that government. And then we had the federal government. Of course, the federal government, we had the foreign minister and all those who were doing the internationalist duty. We used to invite speakers. The university did, but some invited themselves to come and talk because of the name of the University of Dar es Salaam. It had branded itself. It's one of the places to visit. It's one of the places to go and talk. One of my happiest moments was when I invited Angela Davis. She was president of the Communist Party of South Africa, of the United States. Not only. There were times we had visits from Dr. Agostino Neto. Interestingly, also we had a visit from Prince Mangasutu Buthelezi. And it was quite a show, I can assure you. Buthelezi came. Beautiful lecture at the Nkrumah Auditorium. The audience was very attentive. And then came question time. One question said, Prince, can you tell us the anomaly? You said you're fighting for the liberation of your country and your people. But Nelson Mandela is in Robben Island, Governor Mbeki, Katrada, and all these guys. And how come you are not in prison? Then another question. How did it happen that the Boers allowed you to travel to all places, including Tanzania, which they consider the bastion of terrorism? What is your opinion on the armed struggle? And then he got agitated. What are the guns? Give me the guns. Then it became rowdy. Then he had just walked out of the stage. It was very rough. Well, of course, I meet him these days. He's an elder statesman, but I have not reminded him of this story, and don't go and tell him. Of course, some of these meetings, at times, there are some of us who have so outspoken on the other extreme. I remember a friend of mine when President Neto came here. At that time, he was president of the MPLA, the Liberation Movement. Of course, after independence, he became president. He asked, Mr. Freedom Fighter, you're talking about fighting for freedom. How come your wife is white? And then we came out and called this brother is reactionary. It's not a question of color. It's commitment to the cause. Whether you are black or white or green, but if you're committed to the cause, you are right. So, of course, we also invited locals. I remember one time we invited Commander Diwani. He was talking to the audience, people very excited. We had young people like me, Brian, like Andrew Shija. We also invited senior leaders like John Malechela, at that time he was foreign minister. So we had just a cross-section of leaders that would bring. But the idea is really to have dialogue with them, learn from them. The lessons we are getting from our lecturers, but also from the public lectures, broadened the horizons of knowledge and shaped our understanding and perception of the state of play at home, in the continent, and the world. No doubt, it somehow made some of us into what we became later in life. The students, of course, also, Mwalimu Nyerere used to come regularly, because he used to have what he called university teaching. Come and talk a bit, and we ask questions. The students were very militant on national, regional, and global issues. We were vocal, at times daring. Of course, I mentioned some of this, but one day, I can give you an example. There was the issue of the liberation of Zimbabwe, how to end white minority rule of Ian Smith. And at that time, the foreign secretary was Sir Alec Douglas Hume. So we had information that he was coming. So I mobilized buses of students here. We went to the airport. We had already a statement we wanted to read to him. Our president, Martin Shinganya, was there with a microphone, hoping that this gentleman would stand up, wait, and listen to our message. Then I go to the airport. John Malechela was foreign minister. And my very brother, Patrick Koro, I see the wife here. That time the wife was a student with us. I'm not sure if he was as militant as we were. Patrick was deputy minister in the office of the prime minister, looking after youth affairs. So they call me, Malechela calls me. I said, why have you brought so many people here at the airport? So well, we have come here just to express our displeasure with the way the British are handling the whole issue of the independence of Zimbabwe. I say, you students, young people at the university are very arrogant. You are the only ones who have come here. I said, well, I cannot speak for the others. I'm only speaking for my, for our youth. And then they said, tell them to go. I said, I can't do it. Then you have to sign a commitment that if the British Foreign Secretary is hurt, you'll be held responsible. I said, okay, fine, give me the book to sign. I was not given the book. The gentleman came. They arranged to derail us. They said to stay here. The plane is going to land here. Then we saw that there was a trick there. But what we did, when the plane landed, as it was taxiing, we were just following the plane. When the plane stopped, we were there shouting, reading our message. So you can see these. There was a lot of vibrancy, a lot of militancy at that time. And our people were nationalistic. We are nationalists at heart. One day, after I left the university, I was working, I came here. I go through war literature. It used to be my pastime. I was shocked to see at the war literature an announcement, a meeting of Nyakyusa students. Agenda, introduce the new parliamentarians from the origin. Boy. At that time, there was a chairman of Youth League, Madeu. I called him, I said, look here, Madeu, what is this? How do you allow the university to degenerate to this level, forming tribal associations at a national university? The militance is gone. The national outlook is gone. I said, oh, I hope it does not persist. Nadhani hivyo vyama havipo, au kama vipo basi mjue na nyinyi mmepotoka. Hamwezi kwa kwenye university hapa chama cha wakwere. Here the discourse is about national issues, the global national issues. But when we degenerate to the level of meetings of Wanyakyusa, Wakwere, Wazaramo, Wadigo, that's wrong. And the agenda, maslahi ya wanafunzi wa Kinyakyusa. Maslahi ya wanafunzi wa Kikwere. Oh no, please. And this university should be better than that. This university should be better than that. Of course, we are able to be that militant because President Nyerere also permitted us to be. However, he never felt shy to correct us when he left. He felt that we were not doing things right. At that time when I was a student leader, one day he came for the university teachings. After he left, the Vice Chancellor, Pius Msekwa, said Mwalimu Tusi wants to see all leaders of the Youth League and leaders of the student government. So we were given tracts, we were followed to State House. They are seated, he was there. He was very angry, very harsh. He was saying, look here, children are not at the university. Children are in primary school and kindergarten. All of you at the university are grown-up individuals. na nyinyi watu wazima, watoto hawako chuo kikuu. So don't do nonsense there and saying, oh, please forgive us, we are children. You are not children. He says, when I deal with university students, I'm dealing with elders, grown-ups. So he says, I enjoy dialogue, I enjoy debate, I enjoy discourse. Even if you sit now, if I'm passing, you sit by the roadside picketing. I have no problem with that. But I don't expect you to write insults in the war literature. You know, at that time, the National Youth Movement, the National Youth League, had come up with what they call the dress directive. Nguo zenye heshima na sisi tulikuwa na heshima. The clothes that are decent to wear and those that are not decent. So our youth league came up with posters. They posted them everywhere, and some of them were posted at war literature. And someone went there, wrote upuuzi wa kawawa. That he says Mwalimu so much. That's why he called us. He said, look here, don't expect you. Argue a case. Don't write insults. So he dressed us down. You wish he stops, he doesn't. And then he stopped. After he stopped, he was a completely changed man. So let's go for a drink. So we go to the other side. It was not the same person who was so angry with us. Very friendly, we were chatting, arguing with him. That's why he was teaching us lessons on how the power is structured in the country. We were naive. He's saying, you think, okay, the farmers are many, but they don't have the power. Power is in the hands of the military, the bureaucrats, the intelligentsia, and the workers. The farmers are not organized. But it was at this meeting and the argument that we had that he took a decision that some of us should be taken to work for the party after we finish university. Ndio tulipopatia kazi pale. So, ladies and gentlemen, today I hear the dominant discourse among academia in Africa is about decolonizing African university and knowledge. We thank Mwalimu Nyerere for his vision of introducing the decolonization of knowledge production as the philosophy of this university.
Thank you, Creative Arts, for a very beautiful song. Before we proceed, one of our participants here has lost his phone within these premises. That is the Director General of the Tanzania Library Services. If you have come any phone here and around, please bring it to me.
Bango Primary School, then Liparambo, Mbinga, Songea Boys, and then Mzumbe before arriving at the Hill. At the University of Dar es Salaam, he was awarded the International Law Prize by UNESCO for being the best student with the highest marks in legal aspects of international trade and investment during the 1984-85 academic year. He demonstrated the same achievements at Queen's University, Ontario, Canada, where he obtained a master's in law, at Lund University in Sweden, where he obtained a master's of international law, and at Warwick in the United Kingdom, where he obtained a PhD in law. He was now well equipped and armed to conquer life, or at least some aspects of it. Karl Marx once said that man in primitive communal society was a farmer in the morning, a fisherman in the afternoon, and a herder in the evening. Professor Luoga has similarly tackled many tasks and brought it to bear his remarkable intellect and unmatched grasp of law to intractable and complex challenges. At the University of Dar es Salaam, he rose rapidly through the ranks to the professoriate within 3 years after earning his doctorate degree. Through that time, hundreds of students passed through his hands at the bachelor's, master's, and doctorate levels. At the same time, he carried a heavy administrative load, first as associate dean in the faculty, but later as the university's director of undergraduate studies and the first deputy vice chancellor for research and knowledge exchange. He finally served as deputy vice chancellor responsible for academics. In the meantime, he served as the university's corporate counsel, in which role he provided an interpretation of the law that was upheld by the High Court on numerous occasions. That interpretation enabled the university to put an end to in the whole country. Professor Luoga has researched and published chapters in books, articles in refereed journals, and conference papers on tax law, human rights, and legal negotiations. Outside the university, Professor Luoga has been equally busy, if not busier. He is an experienced practitioner with more than 30 years of legal practice and a trainer of interpersonal skills in legal negotiations and case evaluations. He was, for over 15 years, the chairperson of FK Law Chambers and is the most experienced specialist consultant on tax law in Tanzania. He is often engaged to handle matters and advise on energy and mining. He also provided consultancy services on private international trade and finance law, competition law, as well as commercial laws. In addition,